with Jamie, flipping his camera as we speak. Jamie, how you doing today?
Doing all right, man. Just watching this boring game.
It's exhilarating. 7-6 in the fourth quarter. Just what Germany wanted. Doc, how you doing? Good to see you as always. You know, we love
I'm
having you in the chat, but we especially love having you on the show as well.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me back. Really want to express my appreciation for you guys, but also on Veterans Day weekend, want to express appreciation for our veterans out there. First and foremost, our very own Mr. Zach Pulowski. Thank you for your service, and thank all the veterans out there for their service. We appreciate you more than you know.
Absolutely. No, thank you for your support. It's always appreciated. Thank you for everyone that signed that contract, that's committed their lives. There's definitely a lot of sacrifice with that. We always thank you. Also, Doc, you're never going to plug it because you're modest, you're humble, but I'm always going to plug it every chance I get. Every time I see you in the chat, every time I have you on a show, go check it out. It's on Amazon. Injuries suck, but your fantasy team doesn't have to. You can learn a lot about player injuries, understanding them better, helping make better roster decisions in regards to injury history, that kind of stuff. Highly recommend this. Not a long read, but a good read. He signed mine too. Got to frame it at some point. But go check it out. Author right here on the show with us today.
Thank you
Dr.
very
James
much,
Reddy.
sir. So, what chapter are you up to?
I'm on chapter 3.
Chapter
I'm on
3.
chapter
All right,
3.
we're just getting warmed up at that
Hey,
part.
but my schedule's freeing up now. It's on the top of my books to read.
All right.
But with that in mind, let's just jump into some injuries. We will keep you updated as we get stuff on Twitter from Schefter, Yates, all those guys. But with that in mind, we'll just jump into the IR news first and foremost. Some good news there. Kyren Williams, that early season breakout, the running back for the Rams there. He is expected back in week 12. So if you're like me and you got him on the IR and you need another running back, well, he should be back soon enough. And, well, it's been very bleak at that position for the Rams. Any thoughts on Kyren Williams returning? Doc, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, I think they projected him for week 12. So it looks like that's actually going to happen. Things have changed a little bit in the Rams backfield since he got injured. But yeah, I think he's got a really good chance to reclaim a pretty significant workload once he comes back.
Jamie, thoughts?
Yeah, I was never a Kyren Williams fan, but I mean, he's been producing, right? Even though his profile's not that great, they've been giving him the workload. So when he comes back, he's got to be a must start.
No, he's definitely going to be in must start. I'm excited for him to come back. He's a guy I've been really trying to be patient about him returning to my starting lineup in regards to my playoff pushes. With that in mind, we'll jump right into the bad news and work our way towards more of the questionable stuff. We'll start with the guys that are out. Treylon Burks, concussion. I don't think we need to really lean on the doc too much for concussion analysis there when I think it seems like fairly well-known common knowledge at this point among the football community about how it's never a good situation to be in. You know, it's week to week and it's tough to forecast it, right? It's not like a lot of the other injuries, ligaments, that kind of stuff. Doc, I'll let you take that away.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it pretty well. The only thing that I would add is that most players, when they get a concussion nowadays, as opposed to maybe a couple of years ago, will miss at least one game, and then it's kind of wait and see after that. We have had a couple of concussions, like Brock Purdy, probably the most recent one, where he did play the following week after sustaining a concussion. He had some delayed onset symptoms. He was able to recover quickly. But as you alluded to, Zach, there's no guarantees with any concussion that the player is going to recover. We have seen some players miss multiple weeks. So it's just something that you have to kind of like, if you're going to play the percentages, plan that the player is going to miss at least 1 week. And then it's kind of like wait and see after that. Are they able to get back to practice? Are they able to practice fully? And, remembering with the concussion protocol that you need to be able to practice fully without return of symptoms before you can return to play. So we have seen issues where players are only partially practicing going into Friday. That's usually a really good indication that they're not going to be able to make it back in time for that week's game. So you can get a little bit of a jump or a heads up that what's going to actually happen before you get the official report.
No, appreciate it. No, good insight as always. Now, with that in mind, Jamie, fantasy perspective there. Does this impact anything? Are you going to play any Titans players? I mean, there's some ugly bye week situations, but outside of those, are you going to favor DeAndre Hopkins more because of that? It's still going to be Levis from the sounds of it.
I mean, you got to start Hopkins. Levis has been targeting him like crazy. Henry's the one must start, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, Hopkins, depending on who else you have, you got to.
Where do you have Hopkins ranked right now?
Hold on, I got to pull up my spreadsheet.
Daniel will answer you in the chat 1 second.
Oh, damn. I'm not even seeing him. Did I miss Hopkins?
Well, that's not good.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree about
he's higher than I thought. Okay, I have him at 12.
Okay.
Of Olave.
So he would be a must start then as well.
Yeah.
So, okay. So that's where, with Treylon Burks' concussion, we definitely want to favor Hopkins. I mean, there was already chemistry there anyway, but especially with Burks out, it just seems like they're going to favor him even more. Someone I'd keep in mind as well for a little flyer if you're really desperate and it's redraft or waivers maybe this week would be Kyle Phillips. Someone there, maybe a more gadget guy, some PPR. Nothing too sexy, but, with someone like Treylon Burks out, I would look at names like that. Also, we've got Daniel on Facebook right now. Need help, guys. Pick 2 full PPR. Hawk, Laporta, James Cook. What a good situation to be in. I'm I'm assuming that's all for flex. I know you listed 2 tight ends, but I like to think that you probably have Andrews or Kelsey above that. Maybe I'm fantasizing, but with that in mind, Jamie, thoughts on this roster?
I mean, if it's not tight end premium, I think I'm going to go with the running back. I know I have James Cook down at like RB 22, 23, but that's still going to score more points than the tight end 5. So yeah, I think I'm going to go with James Cook just for the workload.
Doc, what about you? Thoughts there?
Yeah, I guess the one thing that I'm worried about with James Cook is, the Bills, even though they're going up against Denver this week, they signed Lombardi-Lenny a couple of weeks ago. And is this the week that they decide to get the big fella more involved? I don't know. So, I get the idea that it's a bad defense and you could be getting the volume, but you could also not. And if that's the case, Laporte has been doing amazing. Hawkinson, even though he's expected to be limited, they're missing some weapons there. They have the resurgent Joshua Dobbs there now, and Minnesota's looking really good against all odds there. So, if he continues to be a pass funnel on that offense, I think he's performed really well. So I probably would go with the 2 tight ends and kind of hope for the best there, just because of the uncertainty and because of the the situation around James Cook, and just even before Lombardi-Lenny, he's been inconsistent. So, you could, it's more of a boomer bust play as opposed to the kind of safer floor with a moderate ceiling for the 2 tight ends.
Doc, I couldn't agree with you more. I'm favoring the 2 tight end setup right there. I mean, Hawk and Laporta have just been consistent. I trust them. I trust what I'm going to get. I trust the volume that's coming their way. James Cook, there's good weeks, there's bad weeks. It really depends on the format. I like James Cook as a play in general, but with the options of Hawk and Laporta sitting there, you're in a great spot, Daniel. That means you get too much talent, especially on a week like this where we have bye weeks. So good job.
Let's say if you were have to pick one or the other, Hawk or Laporta, who would you start?
That I'm biased. I have Laporta in about half of I would say like 6 of my 13 dynasty leagues, and I don't have any Hawkinson, so I'm always going to favor Laporta. But I don't think you can go wrong. I guess I would probably favor Laporta simply because of the fact that I have Jared Goff throwing the ball rather than Dobbs. I know Dobbs has been good. I like him as a redraft play, especially this week. But in general, I don't necessarily want to trust that Dobbs is going to maintain this. You know what I mean? Like Goff, I know for the lack of love he gets, he's been really good. He's been really consistent. And with that in mind, I trust what I'm going to get with him on the field and with that offense and with Laporta out there. So I'm favoring Laporta over Hawk. Doc, what about you?
I agree. Slight edge to Laporta. I won't repeat it because I think he summed it up really well. What about you, Jamie? Would you favor?
I think I'm going to lean Hawkinson. I got him slotted for like.
It's close. It's very close.
I have Hawkinson. I think tight end 4 or 5. Laporta at like 6, 7. So it is really close.
Yeah, no, those are guys you want on your team either way. Like I would be thrilled to have both. I love those situations where you have a surplus of talent, especially at a bleak tight end or at a bleak tight end position. With that in mind, we have Kyle on Facebook. Can't believe we are in this situation, but we are still playing Adams.
Ah,
Are we talking Devontae Adams?
I'm
yeah,
assuming
he's going
so.
against the Jets right this week. So
Yeah,
that's why I have him down by the 20s.
he was up late with Ayahuasca Boy last night.
Oh no. Like I would rather probably start Tyler Boyd this week over Adams, honestly.
Oh my God.
I mean, with Higgins out, Chase limited. I know the Houston, they're great against the slot receiver, but the ball has to go somewhere.
Yeah. Doc, your thoughts?
I mean, it's Devontae Adams, man. Like if you bench Devontae Adams for somebody and he goes off for 40 on your bench, I think that's one of those things like you don't forgive yourself for the rest of your life. So, unless you have just an overwhelming abundance of riches, I think you got to keep running him out there and just hope that some of the, as a Raiders fan, some of the the dysfunction in that team seems like it's been exercised by the addition of Antonio Pierce as the head coach, and they really started to look good last week. So hoping that continues forward, that they find a way to get him incorporated back into the offense, because he's just, he's one of the best receivers in the NFL. I know that like things have been bleak, but there have been some changes recently that it gives you some, good reason for optimism. So that's the way I see it. It's like if I had him, like I just keep rolling him out there, and if I go down in flames with Devontae Adams in my starting lineup, then it's just not my year. But I'm not benching him and having him go off for a 30 or 40 burger, and then I'm kicking myself because I started a third tier wide receiver. And no disrespect to Tyler Boyd, but he's not Devontae Adams.
Yeah. So what about I'm thinking
wait.
drafts. So what if you had Lockett? Would you start Lockett over Adams?
No, I would start Adams. I want to keep it on Adams real quick though. With Devontae, I like the play a lot. I completely agree with Doc in regards to just riding it out. You took him high enough where at this point, unless you're not going to get a fair return in a trade for what you paid or for what you'd feel comfortable giving up. So with that in mind, I'm going to ride it out, and I'm going to trust that it's going to fix itself over time. I mean, there's a big flip in culture right now with this team. I think that's something that can't be emphasized enough. Like we saw all the Raiders players smoking cigars with the coach in the locker room after a win, and it's been an ugly year, but they're celebrating midseason. Not a good sign for what was there before, but it's a good sign of potentially what could be to come. Obviously, the QB situation has been ugly. We don't necessarily want to trust that or depend on that. But at the same time, Devontae, week in, week out, year in, year out, is one of the most consistent fantasy producers there is. Plus, even on what feels like a down year, he's wide receiver 14. Yes, he had one massive week, but still, for the most part, least amount of targets he's had is 4, 5, 7, 7, 8, 9. He's usually always getting that volume regardless of who's out there throwing him the rock. So with that in mind, I'm going to keep him in my lineup, and I'm going to trust it. And yeah, like Doc said, it's going to hurt a lot more if he produces on your bench. That's one of those where I would really need a strong bench option that I would have, like say it's a Puka or someone like that, like say Puka earlier in the year or something, right? But it's someone that's really starting to show promise and they're pushing for that starting lineup spot, right? It has to be someone on my bench that's really impressing me. Like say it's Adam Thielen, right? Like okay, he's earned that spot over Devontae. Yes, I'll bench Devontae then, but for the most part, I'm not going to consider a lot of these other mid-class wide receivers.
So here's a few people I have over Adams. Would you do Tank Dell over Adams?
Absolutely fucking not.
No. Tank Dell over Adams?
No.
That's crazy, man. Because I actually put Dell in my top 10 this week.
Well, get the silly string ready, baby.
What about Deontay Johnson over Adams?
Let's talk about Tank Dell real quick. I like Tank Dell.
I don't dislike Tank Dell, but I'm not starting him over Devontae Adams.
I actually might.
All right.
Nico Collins. So back to the injury news, is out with a calf injury. Damian Pierce is out with an ankle injury. So their RB1 and wide receiver 1 are out. CJ Stroud still going to throw the ball, and that's where I'm expecting more targets for Tank Dell this week. This would be purely I believe in the Houston offense bet. There, it's a risk, and I don't know. Yeah, he said Nico over Nico is out, so definitely not Nico. But yeah, I wouldn't. I'd only do it in a lineup where I feel like I'm comfortable.
Well, here's my question to you guys, because this seems like an exercise in recency bias, because prior to last week with Tank Dell blowing up for 6 catches, 114 yards, and 2 touchdowns, 29.6 PPR points, his total PPR points was under 20 for the last 3 weeks, including his bye week. So
Yeah,
week 8, 6.1, week 5, 8.3, week 4, 3.9. So that's your floor. So that's your boom bust right there. Devontae Adams ceiling, 42 PPR points.
Yes.
That's a weekly ceiling. So I guess maybe it depends on your matchup. You think he's going to do a little bit better, but you guys gotta take into account that there's a lot of fluctuation there. Like, this is a well-established wide receiver 1 for the last better part of a decade.
But
we got Tank Dell as Johnny come lately.
And that's where, to me, this is a this week only kind of play. It's not me being lower on Devontae, or like the previous topic,
that's fair.
or
I
the
definitely
recency.
get that.
For me,
but also
it's
look at last week with the game script. They win 30-6 against the Giants. You still got 7 PPR points, but how much of that was he phased out because they were kicking the crap out of the Giants so bad? It should be a much more competitive game against the Jets this week. They're going to need him if they're going to win.
I look at the Bengals defense as something that's going to put pressure on CJ Stroud, where they're going to be trying to get it out quickly, and that's where I'm expecting a lot more PPR opportunity. It's been hit or miss depending on the week with Tank Dell. I hear you, it hasn't been consistent, but again, he's a rookie, so that's kind of all you can ever really expect from a rookie is inconsistency, right? They're figuring it out. But with that in mind, he has had some big weeks. 7 targets, 10 targets, 11 targets. In all 3 of those weeks, he had 20-plus fantasy points. So he's wide receiver 33 on the year. It's not a terrible, at the end of the day, though, if I have to be honest with myself, I'd probably play Devontae, just because I know that
I brought him back.
I'm just thinking of the
dark side, and I brought him back.
As I'm trying to put myself in their shoes of, when I'm on my sleeper screen setting my lineup, what goes through my mind in that situation is, yes, I think Tank's going to have a massive week, but I'm going to feel a lot worse if I bench Devontae and he goes off this week and I didn't trust one of my top picks that I drafted like I trusted, right? I'm going to put him in because, it's going to hurt less if he shits the bed in my starting lineup, because it's like, oh yeah, he's consistent. I made the smart play there. But if Tank Dell shits the bed, it's like, yeah, what did I expect? That's half the weeks right now, right? And that's where, that's a good one though. I like it. Tank Dell versus I would love to have both in a lineup this week, honestly. But no, with that in mind, more on the out players. We have Kendre Miller out for the Saints with an ankle injury. That not too much to report on there, but I mean, I guess we don't have to worry about him eating into Kamara's workload, but that was really just Jamal Williams again at this point, now that he's healthy and back. Jaren Hall, again, concussion. He is out, so that means Dobbs again for Minnesota at quarterback. Another quarterback that's out, Matthew Stafford, again with a thumb injury. So LA is it Carson Wentz? Have they announced that yet?
I haven't seen anything on that.
Yeah,
but
they're on a bye this week,
so
we'll figure it out next week.
Yeah. Nico Collins, he is out with a calf injury. Damian Pierce as well, ankle injury. Tee Higgins, that's a big one there. Hamstring. With that in mind, Doc, I'll go to you for. Oh, wait. Before we talk about T, we've actually got Gladys in the chat. Hey, hi, Lamar or Goff?
I'm gonna go Lamar easy. I still have him in my top 5, even though going against Cleveland, he's gonna use his legs. I think he destroyed us last time, right?
Week 4 at Cleveland, he had 32.14 fantasy points, 15 for 19 with 2 passing touchdowns. He didn't have anything for yards, but he had 4 touchdowns. Yeah, he had 213 total yards between rushing and passing. But you're easy, Lamar. That's it.
He got Goff on the road, right? I think they're playing in LA.
Yep.
He just
LA Chargers.
Road. Even though the Chargers defense is horrible, I'm still gonna go Lamar.
Doc, what about you?
I can't argue that. I mean, Lamar is Lamar. Like, same thing, high ceiling every week. And with Jared Goff, and this is a little known fact, but on the Monday night show, I'm actually surprised Gladys is contemplating this. She referred to Jared Goff as a dreamboat. So I'm surprised that she's contemplating, putting Jared Goff in or not. But yeah, him on the road versus home, he's a different player. That's the narrative anyway. So, Lamar basically would be my starting quarterback every week, unless I had, somebody like Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. Maybe they would be somebody that I would start above him, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah, Gladys says he is. That is my problem. No, every fiber in my being wants to say Jared Goff because I think it's a good play. But if I have Lamar, I'm one.
It is. It's a nice problem to have.
Yeah. I have something similar where it's a 1 QB where I have Josh Allen and Jared Goff. And every week I look at Jared Goff like, wow, I'd love to play you. Like, I want to play you. I like this matchup. I'm expecting big things, but I'm not going to bench you for the guy that I took to be my guy.
Yeah, I think sometimes when we get these lineup decisions where, it's this or that, we fall into this trap of like thinking that it's binary where one choice is right and one choice is wrong. And the right answer sometimes is they can both be good or they can both be bad. I think this is one of those situations where they're both good choices. I just like Lamar a little bit better.
Yeah, no, great situation to be in, Gladys. I think you're going to have a good week at the QB position either way. With that in mind, we'll go back to Tee Higgins, though. Fantasy implications there. Jamie, I'll go to you first because you already touched on it a little bit. I believe you mentioned Tyler Boyd. You want to touch on that a little bit more?
Let's see, they're playing Houston. If you look at the slot first wide, Houston doesn't allow many points to the slot receivers. I think it's 8 points per game. But I still see Tyler Boyd going over that 8 points. They're just going to target him a lot with Higgins out. Plus Chase could be – we don't know if he's going to be used as a decoy or not. So the ball has to go somewhere. And I think Boyd's going to benefit from it. So I did put him in my top 24. So he's like a low-end wide receiver 2, high-end number 3 guy that like I'm happy to start him, even though Houston is good against the slot.
Doc, what do you got there?
I love that. And Tyler Boyd is one of my favorite players. And they've been throwing this term around, at least starting this year, about contingency upside. Especially with injuries, which is one of the things I love. I think Tyler Boyd was one of those players that you could acquire cheaply. You could get him late. And his upside is this exact situation. If Jamar Chase and or Tee Higgins were to miss, then Tyler Boyd kind of steps in and can be exactly as Jamie had him ranked, a wide receiver 2, which I think is excellent. The interesting thing with Tee Higgins and his injury, coming back to the injury perspective, is he injured himself midweek, and they already are talking about that it could be a week-to-week type of thing, which with regard to the grade of hamstring injury is suggesting to me that it's a partial tear or a grade 2, which is not a simple tweak where you actually have tears in the muscle fibers that you can see on imaging. And those tend to last longer as far as the recovery time. They can stretch out 3-4 weeks on the low end and up to 8 weeks on the high end. I don't think it's going to be quite that bad, but this is something that where, there's no guarantee that he's going to be back next week or, anytime soon. So, we could be thinking about Tyler Boyd, going forward. And we also have Jamar Chase, who looks like he's going to play with his back injury, but is potentially limited. Now, I wouldn't say don't fire up Jamar Chase, but I think Tyler Boyd could definitely be somebody that could get you production, not just this week, but for a few weeks going forward. So I love that call by Jamie as well. Like that, I think he's going to be somebody you might end up ranking, as a wide receiver 2 for maybe a few weeks.
Yeah, didn't Higgins have a fractured rib early in the year?
He had a rib injury that, kind of limited him. So I guess the good news is this will give him a chance. It'll give him a chance to heal that. But yeah, it's, it's been, he hasn't had a lot of injury luck this year for sure.
Yeah. No, I love Boyd as a play. I hope Jamar is healthy. I really do. I think Jamar and Boyd can feast. I mean, I trust the momentum the Bengals offense has found at this point. I expect that to maintain.
I will say this, at least they had the courtesy of ruling Tee Higgins out before the game as opposed to saying that he was going to play, so he goosed for everybody. So I will give them credit for that at the very least.
We appreciate that, unlike Atlanta with Bijan. But with that in mind, we'll move.
Arthur Smith 101 right there.
Oh, what a guy.
The most hated coach in fantasy, I think.
I almost like him because he's hated so much.
Yeah, you actually got to give him credit. It's like you almost have to try to be that disliked, and he's doing a really good job.
It's impressive.
Yeah.
No, with that in mind, we'll move on over to the doubtfuls, and I think at this point we can move it on over to the outs because it just doesn't make sense for him to play. I'll let Doc just kind of jump into this more. Dallas Goedert, right forearm fracture.
Yeah, so I want to address this. I heard on some other podcasts, which I won't name because I don't want to slander this individual. But he kept saying he's got a fracture. It's not a break. I forget what he kept saying. I believe that was it. It's like his arm's fractured. It's not broken. His arm's fractured. It's not broken. People, a fracture and a break is the same thing. If somebody has a fractured arm, it's broken. So he's got a broken forearm. I don't know if he needs surgery at this point, but he's going to be out 3 to 4 weeks minimum. That's what they're talking about. They may put him on an IR. They may not. They haven't done it yet, but they're on a bye this week, so they don't have to do anything. They may end up doing it next week. They just kind of want to wait and see. So he's going to be out for a little while, and he's still somebody that I think could be valuable come fantasy playoff time, but you're going to be without him for a few weeks. He's got a broken forearm.
I couldn't agree more. When I heard fracture, I mean, I just think to my own injuries as an athlete, and with that in mind, the only time I fractured a bone, my body still wasn't allowing me to put weight on it the same way.
Yeah.
It's whether it's a full, like a clean break or not, it doesn't matter. Your body is still going to communicate to you, hey, we're not at full capacity.
Yeah, we got a problem. We got a problem here.
Yeah. So, and why would you rush?
And he is having surgery, by the way. Like okay. They probably, they got to line up the bones. They'll put a plate in there. It's not a super big deal. It's pretty part and parcel for what, a break, entails with the forearm. But, they're expecting a, 3 to 4 week absence. So that's what we're looking at. Sorry to interrupt you. I apologize.
No, you're good. No, I appreciate it. And, I just wanted to touch on that with Dallas, though. It's something where this is a Super Bowl favorite that is focused on the playoffs and getting a title. They're not worried about our fantasy teams. So right now, their number one tight end, their primary focus is having them 100% for after their bye in the playoffs, right? That's all it's about at this point. They want to make sure he's good to go when it matters most. So until then, they're going to be patient. That's what I'm expecting. So if you're saying 3 to 4 weeks or 4 weeks, I wouldn't be surprised if it's 5 or 6 at that point, because I could see them baby stepping it. And at some point, what if they have enough of a game margin where they can rest guys, then they're definitely going to have guys like Dallas. Hey, just sit out. We'll wait, okay, get a couple snaps, but it's not going to be anything relevant for fantasy. And with that in mind, Jamie, I wanted your thoughts on Dallas Goedert in regards to the fantasy implications. Do you like their backup?
Alberto. Yeah, I was kind of interested in Alberto. I think I picked him up. I had him in a few dynasty leagues. I picked him up in a couple other ones that I dropped him in just in case. He's athletic. They do use the tight ends. And I just think they're going to – I don't think Alberto has the touchdown upside that we think, but what's his name? Julio Jones, good old Quintoris Lopez. That's his real name, by the way. I think he's going to be used more in the red zone. So he can have touchdown upside week to week. Just not someone that you want to put in your lineup, though. Like, I don't think I could trust a 34-year-old Julio. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, real quick, I have to make an interjection. Speaking of real names, CJ is short for Coleridge, right?
Yeah, Coleridge, Bernard Strout the fourth.
Yep.
I like
Yep.
that.
That's
I have unique.
His nickname is Coleridge on all the teams I own him. I'm
Nice.
like, I gotta educate him. No, but no. With that in mind, Doc, please jump in on what Jamie was saying with Dallas.
Yeah, no, I think it's really interesting because we saw something like this last year where he kind of went out about the same time, and I think he was back week 15, if I'm reading it right. And then he had some marginal production, and then he kind of really came on in the playoffs. So we could be seeing that again. The one thing that is interesting is the defenses that he's going to be facing. If you were to come back weeks 14, 15, 16, 17, at Dallas week 14, at Seattle week 15, the Giants at week 16, and then home against Arizona week 17. So some potentially juicy matchups there when the chips are really down if you get to the point where you're in the semifinals or the finals. So I think he's definitely still worth holding on to because he could have a pretty high ceiling for those games, but you're going to have to weather the storm. And you may not be in a situation where you can do that if you're 4-5 or 3-6. It might be something where, your redraft leagues and things like that, you might need to attend to more pressing needs to even get to that point. But if you're in a situation where you're fortunate enough to, be looking good for the playoffs coming down the stretch, then he's definitely somebody that's worth holding on to.
Absolutely. And thoughts on Albert O before I poop on that parade?
I think anybody in the Eagles offense, they have, like in boxing, they call it a puncher's chance. Like, I think anybody on that offense has a puncher's chance of having a good week. I don't know if I'd want to be relying on it, but you can't completely discount anybody, even Julio Jones or Albert Okwuegbunam. They certainly could have a good week here and there, but I don't know if the consistency is going to be there, especially the way that A.J. Brown and DeAndre Swift have been really carrying the offense, and even Devonta Smith to a lesser extent. So I think more of the work that would have gone to Dallas Goedert is going to go towards them. But anybody in that offense has a chance to pop for any given week.
By the way, interception, Colts, they're going to win 10-6 in Germany.
That is exciting. Achtung.
But no, on the subject though of Albert O, he's not my guy. I'll put it that way. I'll keep it respectful because I don't want to make it too disparaging, but I've never been a fan. I never understood the hype off the bat. And I think that's where more so I'm out on Albert O, is just because I've been down this road before with hearing Albert O's song being sung. That was the whole thing right when Noah Fant was part of that trade when Russell Wilson came into town. And he's not even there anymore, right? That was supposed to be his job to lose. And he's a year later, he's not even there. And guess what? He was the backup to Fant. And how's Fant doing in Seattle? I in regards to play, like team-wise, I like it. In regards to what Jamie's alluding to, it's just that Albert O specifically scares me, so that's where I'd look further down their depth chart. Is there another like UDFA tight end that might be able to get some snaps? I don't know. I'm just at this point, I probably
that's going deep. That's deep cuts at tight end right there. Wow.
Hey, yeah, that's how you find those Kylan Gransons ahead of time.
Yeah, no kidding.
But no, that's where I wouldn't really be looking at their tight end room at all. In regards to if I'm in redraft, I'm looking to address my tight end position because Goddard's out. There's a lot of young tight ends that I like: McBride, Meyer, Musgrave.
Yeah.
You name it. The list goes on and on with young tight ends with potential and high upside for the rest of the year.
Yeah, so that's a really good point.
So with that in mind, I wouldn't stress it too much, but definitely not good for the Dallas Goedert owners out there. With that in mind,
you wouldn't be going towards Jack Stull, Grant Calcaterra, or Albert O.
I do like Grant Calcaterra. I do like Calcaterra.
Yeah,
SMU guy. Oh yeah.
Okay.
He was a sleeper. I still have hope.
Somebody wake him up.
Yep. Oh yeah, he needs it right now. He's probably still just going to be on the practice squad though. Let's move on to questionables. As of right now, that is anyway. We've got Curtis Samuel with a toe injury. Doc, any comments there as our expert doctor?
Yeah, I mean, the thing you worry about with a toe injury, obviously, is a turf toe injury, which is an injury to one of the ligaments that is, in on the underside of the sides of the toe. It is something that players can play through, but it is also a really painful injury. So it's something that we just have to see if he's, I believe he's questionable at this point. We just have to see if he's going to play. Um, it's been really interesting in Washington this year. I mean, I'd say that Sam Howell is now the undisputed king of garbage time, and he's been putting together some really, really good weeks. So anybody that's out there on that offense can really pop in an otherwise ugly game, especially with watching this defense being depleted after all those trades at the deadline. So he's somebody that you could definitely consider as like a what the heck flex play if he's active. But you have to realize that the floor is really low as well. So high ceiling, low floor, boom or bust. Do you need something, Hail Mary to win your matchup type of thing? But if you're looking for more consistency, I don't know if he would be the way that I would go.
Jamie, thoughts on Curtis Samuel, but more specifically the Washington wide receiver room for fantasy this week?
Yeah, Curtis Samuel, I'm not really interested in. I have him in one dynasty league. I'm starting Jaden Reed over him.
Okay.
I have no other options with Devonta Smith out, but let's see. Terry McLaurin, he's interesting. I don't know if I'm excited to start him, but like I said, like you probably have to.
Yeah. No, I liked Curtis Samuel as a play last week. I liked him. I believe it was either this week or last week. I mentioned him on the waiver wire show on Fantasy and Frames on Tuesday. And with the toe injury, it scares me. I'm probably going to keep him on my bench just because if it is turf toe, I'm just going to expect less snaps, a lower snap percentage. And with that in mind, they have enough weapons as is where I just don't see Curtis Samuel as much of a gadget guy. If he's more limited, I think he's used in that intermediate game a lot less, and that's where I don't want to use that as a fantasy play. Terry McLaurin and Dotson, you probably gotta start them. Just with bye weeks, injuries, all that, they're probably in your lineups, but you probably don't feel great about either right now. It's tough to really give a selling point to either when both have been inconsistent. I mean, and the upside is there for both. I think that's the issue, is because we see the talent in Scary Terry, we see the talent in Jahan, but it's just like, okay, can I get 10 plus points from you every week, please?
And Seattle's pretty good against receivers lately.
Yeah,
They're only allowing 26 points per game to the receivers, so that's like 12 each, 13 each for Dotson and McLaurin.
yeah.
One thing I can interject here is, two things. Number one, McLaurin has been really consistent. In all the games that he's played, he's only gone under 10 PPR points twice, with 8.9 and 5.1, and that was all the way back in week 1. So he definitely has the consistency there, even though the ceiling hasn't been there. As far as Jahan Dotson, though, guys, has anybody like really had more of a fall from grace as far as being like a preseason, like late draft, like August darling to like really kind of falling off the map? But the one thing that I will say is he really was bad at the beginning of the year, like really, really bad. But last 2 weeks seems like he's kind of come on against Philly, 24.8 PPR points. Against New England last week, 16.9. So, we're starting to see like that upward trend there. So that at least gives some reason for optimism, especially with the way that the, Commanders have been scoring fantasy points, even if they haven't been scoring, scoring wins in real life. So I don't know. It's something that just to put out there. It's like, it's one of those things where it's like, again, it becomes like a mental thing where it's like, if you have a guy who starts out hot and then tapers off, you keep running him out there because you have that belief of like, oh, he started out good, like he's a good player. And then you have these other players that start off slow and then they start to kind of trend up towards later in the year. And it's like, it takes more and more for you to like get over that and put them back in the lineup. Drake London's another one. Like, I started him week 1 and he goosed for me. And this is the first week that I've been able to convince myself to put him back out there, even though he's had a decent amount of good weeks since then. I still have that, even myself, I'm victim of my own recency bias, where I still have that memory of that bad taste in my mouth of getting a 0 from him in week 1. And it's like, I have this pull to like find somebody else to put in there instead of him. So I don't know. It's just like the mental games of fantasy football always interest me, of how like we perceive different things, even though the outcomes may on an aggregate look different. It's like, how do we interpret these things and how does that affect our behavior?
Absolutely. No, I love it. No, I completely agree. With that in mind, another guy that's questionable, I think he's just going to be listed as out at this point, or it just doesn't really matter because it looks like Will Levis is going to be the starter again. But Ryan Tannehill, questionable with an ankle injury. Another quarterback listed, Jalen Hurts, with a knee injury. It looked like a hard hit to the knee late in the game last week. But from all the reports this week, it still sounds like he's going to be playing. I don't think we've had any sort of reports that suggest that he'd be out.
Hurts
Eagles are on a bye this week.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right.
But I think he's fine. Like,
yeah. There you go ahead, Doc.
No, I think he's fine. Like, yeah, he took a shot to the knee. They got the week off. I haven't seen or heard anything that this is going to linger at all. Like, he's just, he's gutting it out. It's hurting him, but it hasn't hurt his production.
Absolutely. No, we have KJ Osborne, who's got a concussion, questionable there. It looks like he might play, but yeah. Any thoughts there with JJ he's still out?
So KJ's out.
Oh, KJ is out.
Yeah,
now.
KJ's out with that concussion.
Okay. TJ Hawkinson, questionable with ribs. That's always a nervous one there, but I mean, I think we're probably all on the same page that if you have Hawk, you're still just going to play him.
Yeah.
Too consistent to really just let that rib injury get in the way of just him being a must start. Jalen Waddle. This one is one I wanted to go to you, Doc, on knee injury. It's I'll pull up the full extent of it right now, but he's questionable right now. But obviously, anything with those joints, it always makes me nervous. I'm not a doctor like you by any stretch of the imagination, but when I hear ligament stuff like that, even if it's just minor, I understand that even if he can push through it, is he fully the same? And I mean, yeah, please take it away.
Yeah, it's not really clear as to what he's dealing with right now. He does have the bye week to kind of heal up this week, and then he has the soft underbelly of the Las Vegas Raiders defense to contend with next week. And it's been an up and down year for him injury-wise. He had the abdomen injury kind of earlier in the year, but he's only missed one game back in week 3 against Denver. But he's still been pretty consistent as far as his production. I mean, the Dolphins' offense has been amazing this year. And even with all the injuries, his lowest total PPR points-wise was last week against Kansas City with 8.4. And he's been in double digits every other week, except for the week that he missed, obviously, and against Buffalo in week 4. So still been really productive. I mean, he's somebody, it goes back to the Devontae Adams thing and everything else we talked about. Like, you use a high pick on this guy and he's gutting out injuries and things like that. But if he's out there, I think you really have to have a compelling reason not to play him coming down the stretch and heading towards your fantasy playoffs. Like, these are the real money games. These are the games that matter. And if he goes off for, 25 points on your bench because, the Dolphins just decide to go berserk again, you don't want to miss out on that. So, like, I have to have a really compelling reason not to play him or have him be out. If he's healthy and he's out there, like, I'm playing him.
Absolutely. No, and there's nothing, but from your medical perspective, though, there's nothing to be even.
I think it's just something we need to, it's unclear as to what he's actually dealing with. It could be a bone bruise. Yeah. It could be a ligament strain. It could be,
nothing to stress right now.
But it's just watch the practice reports coming out of the bye week. Going into the bye week, we usually don't get a lot of injury updates from teams because they're just like, whatever, we're not playing. We'll figure it out next week. So let's see what let's see what the reports look like on Wednesday, Thursday. He may get a veteran day on Wednesday, and then, which is crazy to think about. Like, he's such a young guy, but he's a veteran. But that's the way the NFL works, right? Like, what do they say? Like, you're only 100% until your first day in the NFL, and then you're never 100% after that. So We'll see what the practice reports look like, and we'll kind of take it from there. But I'm not really worried at this point.
Another one that's interesting at the wide receiver position is Robert Woods with a foot injury listed as questionable. The reason why I want to emphasize this one is due to Nico Collins and Dameon Pierce both being out for Houston this week. Obviously there's Tank Dell there, but it gets bleak pretty quick. And if Woods isn't out there, that could be really ugly really fast. Doc, first off, I'll go to you.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's out. He's going to be out there, so he's active. So that's good. I guess we'll see. Like the thing about the Texans offense, and Jamie could talk about this a little bit more because he was really high on Tank Dell. Like, how much does this injury kind of scare you off? I mean, Robert Woods hasn't been super explosive, but he's still a veteran. We've also seen guys like Dalton Schultz. Like Dalton Schultz had a monster game last week. So even having those veteran guys out there that we don't typically think of as like sexy, guys, like you could just be in the right place at the right time and get a lot of activity from CJ Stroud when he's throwing up these monster numbers. So I don't know. What do you think about that he's going to be out there? Nico Collins is not going to be out there. Where did you kind of have him ranked this week?
Jamie?
For me, yeah, I mean, they're playing Cincinnati. They're about middle of the pack. They allow 31 points per game to the receivers. I could see Noah Brown again. I don't like the guy. I mean, even that's
why? What did Noah Brown ever do to you?
I mean, he was an Ohio State guy back in 2016 or 17. I was just never a fan of him coming out. He was close to being Mr. Irrelevant. I think he was a late 7th round pick.
Hey, you can succeed with that draft pick.
Number 239 the 2017 draft. Hey, he's been hanging around for a few years now. You got to give him.
Yeah, but what has he really done, man? Like, this is the first time I think we've ever talked about him since he's been.
Well, he had a little bit of a stretch last year with Dallas, but I agree. He had a couple of weeks of relevancy, but he hasn't been doing much. I grant you.
Are we talking about Alberto or Noah Brown?
Well, I mean, I could see Noah Brown. I mean, I know people picked him up this week in like every single league that I was in. I'd never.
Well, they kind of had to after his week last week. 6 catches, 153 yards, and a touchdown.
Yeah, I just don't see that happening again. Like, I'd rather play a Kyle Phillips than Noah Brown. I don't even know if I have Noah Brown ranked. I might have just left him out, honestly.
Jamie says recency bias be damned. I'm not ranking Noah Brown. I don't care if he scored 20-something fantasy points last week.
I think
I respect it. I respect it.
I'm on a cheat sheet. I think he was Jordan's fake play of the week, and we all agree that it probably won't ever happen again. But he could get 10, 11 fantasy points this week.
So there's a lot of steam. Noah Brown's getting a lot of steam this week in one of our other leagues, and I'm going to slander him on this program. Kyle Senra in our Dynasty League tried to trade us Noah Brown for a 2nd-round pick, and if I could turn myself into poisonous mist and travel through the computer and kill this guy, I think I might have.
Wow.
But to suffice it to say, he's trying to capitalize on the market of like Noah Brown has more positivity going around him this year. And Kyle, if you're watching, shame on you.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
If you had a choice between Noah Brown and Robert Woods, who would you pick? I think I know the answer, but
Robert Woods, of course.
Robert Woods. Okay, well, I mean that's fair. Like that's kind of how you like him better than.
I would go John Mechie over both.
Yeah,
that's not a bad answer.
Like if you try to get a 4th from me for Noah Brown, I'd decline.
A 2nd round. I mean, granted, it was 2025.
Doc, why don't you tell the full story?
So the rest of the story is Zach and I run this team together, and I didn't see it, but Zach responded to it before I could even get a chance to. So Zach said, "Okay, if that's the way you want to play, we'll counter." So he asked for then that same 2nd-round pick in 2025 for Bijan Robinson, and that got rejected. And he was like, "Oh, what? He doesn't want to go for that?" He's like, "I don't know,
I do
how he likes it."
Thing, dude. If I get a crap offer, I'll just counter with something even more ridiculous.
Because it's primarily Doc's team, so I like any trade offer.
That's legit. It's our team.
But I still treat it like yours, where it's like I expect the final say to be you, and I just kind of help oversee. But it's the bad trade offers. I usually it's funny if it's decent, I'll leave it for you to see.
Yeah.
But if it's bad,
Zach was like, I got this
yeah.
one, Doc. I got this.
I saw the notification. I was like, what the hell is this?
It was the old clear out play. He's like,
I saw it was Kyle, and we had already talked about that. And I was like, oh, screw this. And I was like, all right, no, Noah Brown, no. Okay, that's second. Bijan. Or I was like looking through. I was like, who's the best player on this
who
team?
could I go for? It's like one of those trades in Jamie's league. The only difference is if he offered a second for Bijan Robinson, the guy would probably take it.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know what leagues. It's just like the league of other players that have suffered head trauma recently. Like I don't know where you find these guys, but God bless them.
me.
God bless them. Like Jamie's just lucky, Like they just want to give their good players to him. Here you go, Jamie.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Yeah, it's hard though because I'm in a league with the Going for Two guys. I know Zach's in one. A couple other leagues I'm in with I think Josh Walker, Jerry Wilkie, and those are hard to trade in because those guys know what they're doing.
No shit.
But the other leagues, it's like, come on, man. Like I could offer like a 4th round pick for a starting player and they'll accept it.
Jamie's got the shooting the fish in a barrel league.
Yeah.
Those are the best kind of leagues.
I respect it.
So speaking of, Jamie and his luck, he is a Browns fan. So his luck can't be that good. And speaking of the Browns, we've got Pierre Strong also listed as questionable hamstring. Is there an update there? Do we know of?
I think
no. Jamie, what are your thoughts on Pierre? Because I know you've liked him before.
Pierre Strong is active for better or for worse. So now it's back to being a 3-headed monster backfield.
Yeah, I liked him better when like Ford is out or Hunt would be out. But there's no way I'm starting Pierre Strong at all. Even if I had to, I'd rather start, I don't know, Keontae Ingram or something like that.
It's not a terrible thought.
Yeah.
No, I liked Pierre on the injured weeks, when Ford was out. But at this point, he's not really. He's just an end of bench guy in Dynasty that I'm.
Well, I will say that James Conner looks like he is going to be back. So the Arizona offense looking very different. They went from Keontae Ingram and Joshua Dobbs last week to James Conner and Kyler Murray. So things are looking different out there in the desert.
And McBride is hitting a stride as well.
McBride, Michael Wilson, Hollywood Brown.
Love it for the fantasy.
The offense all of a sudden looks very, very different than it did a couple of weeks ago.
Oh no, it'll be fun to watch. Hopefully, it can actually come to fruition though, right? We can actually get them on the field and healthy for 4 full quarters.
Time whatsoever.
Yeah. So Jamar Chase, it's looking like he's going to play, but
it looks like he's active.
Yeah, but back injury, he was limited all week.
Yeah, he's playing.
Yeah. And it's Tee Higgins is out. Jamar is Jamar anyway.
Yep.
You weren't going to bench him if you were thinking
Don't
about
bench
benching
him. If anybody can get hurt in the NFL, if he gets hurt, then it is what it is. But if he goes out there and he blows up and you benched him because he, had a back injury, you're not going to be happy with yourself.
Jamar is in one spot in my lineup, and he will. When people reach out trying to trade for Jamar and I own him, I say he will die on my team.
There you go.
And I usually say he will die in my wide receiver 1 spot.
There you
go. So that's where I'm like, all right, this is your spot. I'm planning around you being there every week.
Absolutely.
And I'm not, even if you're questionable, I love you every single week.
Get out there.
Or as I like to call him,
go get him, Tiger.
Jamargarita. That's my nickname for him.
That's it.
We got Keaton Mitchell on the questionables.
I forget who. Jamie, was it you who mentioned him? No, it might have been Zach who mentioned him on Fantasy and Frames on the Tuesday waiver show, which is a great show, by the way. Zach Palowski, Gator J, Fantasy and Frames waiver show Tuesday nights. Go check it out. It's amazing. But that was one of your touts a couple of weeks ago, and I'd say that one hit pretty big. Yeah. So why don't you talk about that a little bit, Zach?
That one felt good though, for sure. I mean, we all have the ones we get right, we get wrong. We're never betting 100% or never.
And it was a thin week that week.
It was. He was 2% owned. I went into the weeds and I saw the guy. I mean, I've had him stashed in a bunch of dynasty leagues all year, so like he's a guy I've been watching since the draft, and I liked him in that offense, especially with Dobbins going down. There was more opportunity, but he was hurt to start the year, and he was a late round pick, so there's no threat of him being stolen off the practice squad, especially with how many big names were still out there in free agency at the running back position. We saw Lenny just come out of retirement or whatever that was, and now he's on Buffalo. No, but Keaton, he had his flash. I loved it. It was he's a lot more rostered now. Number one trending guy this week to be picked up. I like the opportunity going forward. I'm still going to keep him on my bench right now. It's still a limited workload, but it was exactly what I described on both shows on Tuesday, because I know right after I did it on waiver wire, I went on Fantasy Cheat Sheet with Jamie, and I believe he was my cheat of the week.
Yeah,
Nice.
he was.
That's a nice pick, and he is active today, by the way. So
okay, perfect.
Definitely, if you're down bad at running back, he popped last week. It could certainly happen again. It's going to be a tough game against the Browns. I don't know. How do you think the sledding is going to be against the Browns today? Obviously, Lamar is going to be able to run, but what do you think about the Gus Bus and Keaton Mitchell getting going on the ground against them?
I mean, if anything, Keaton's going to get some of the passing work, but I don't see him getting a touchdown against the Browns. If someone gets a touchdown, it's going to be Gus Edwards, because they'll just pound him straight up the middle. But I don't see a good game for the Browns today. I'm not expecting much.
When's the last time you expected a lot out of the Browns, though?
When they got Deshaun.
No.
I don't even know if I was that high on that.
I don't think that was it. Was it Bernie Kosar?
No, it was no.
Freddie Kitchens and Baker
Which
Mayfield. When's the last time you've really been excited?
Which QB you took in the top 5 was it?
They moved to Baltimore. I remember that, because as soon as they moved to Baltimore,
right. They were actually really good before they moved to Baltimore.
Yeah, because they won the Super Bowl with the same team in Baltimore.
Exactly.
So,
I want to make jokes about teams moving, but the Packers are my only team that hasn't been threatened with relocation, so I can't talk out of my fan base. Yeah, so it's like, oh no, been there, done that. Never fun for the fan bases.
So is there more injuries?
That is Keaton Mitchell was the last, other than James Conner, but both are in now. They're active. They're going to be playing today. Keaton isn't someone I have in any starting lineups right now. Like, there was a couple where I was doing Christian Watson or Keaton Mitchell, and I'm still going to trust that the Packers are going to be down late. I think the Steelers are just a better team. And the Packers have, if you look at I was looking at this pre-show and I was laughing at it as a Packer fan. It was like the I'm in danger, like that. I was like, oh no, this is not what I want to see. Packers, what have their 2 issues been this year? Offensive line and defense. Let's look at just this week's injury report. We've got Josh Myers, their starting center, questionable. John Runyon, their guard, questionable. Their tackle, Josh Nijman, he's questionable. Cornerback, Jair Alexander, doubtful. Quay Walker, linebacker, doubtful. Kenny Clark, defensive tackle, questionable. Rudy Ford, safety, questionable. That's 4 starters on the defense.
That's not great. It's not great,
3, Bob. Yeah, and on an already bad defense and an already bad offensive line, and 3 offensive linemen are banged up, and not take the Steelers. Jamie, do you have any bets?
Yeah, actually I do.
With that in mind, I do as well, and I do have the Steelers in mind.
Mine is Tyler Lockett. I'm taking over on the fantasy points on DraftKings. It's only at 13 fantasy points. So I'm taking over on that because Washington allows the 4th most points to the wide receivers. I think 68% of those go to the out wide. I know Lockett plays 32% in the slot, but I mean, still 32% of the fantasy points are going to the slot. Yeah, but like 40.9 fantasy points per game to wide receivers. Like, I'm taking Lockett, I'm taking Metcalf. Like, take the over on those guys. He's also my silly string challenge player this week. I needed him to get 10.8 half-point PPR.
All right, I'm rooting for you, buddy. I think you're finally going to break the silly string streak.
Well, I won last week with Amari Cooper.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah,
I think
only
you're making
lost
2 in a
with,
row, or you're going to avoid the silly string.
Yeah,
So
I lost
I
with
like that a
Michael
lot.
Wilson, and then Roshan won. Those are my only losses.
Roshan did you the ultimate dirty.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do this with you guys. I was looking at the bets a little bit pre-show, but the ones that are jumping out to me, first and foremost, Vikings at home versus the Saints. Do we like the Saints that much? I don't think they're bad, but
I like them. And plus, you got to give credit to Michael Thomas for coming back and playing after getting arrested for getting into a fight with a landscaper in front of his house. I think it was Thursday or Friday. So showing true commitment to the brand there. But I don't know. I think the Saints are one of those teams where they're kind of like nobody really gets excited about them, but they have been playing really well. Derek Carr's been playing well. Alvin Kamara has been amazing since he came back from his suspension.
Olave's been a stud too.
Olave's always great. Or at least he has the potential to pop. Rashid Shaheed has had some spike weeks, and their defense is good too. So that game could go either way. That could be a higher scoring game, or it could be like a grinded out type of game as well. So I do kind of like him a little bit.
Yeah, the more you talk about that, the more I just don't want to touch it because I like the Vikings are plus 128 money line, so they're the dogs right now.
I mean
that's
that
tempting
feels
at home,
yeah.
But it is Dobbs, and like what I alluded to earlier, I don't want to risk it. Same thing as my fantasy lineup. Same thing with betting. It's like I'm trying to mitigate my risk as much as possible. With that in mind, two that are just jumping off from when I'm scrolling through the full matchups on the FanDuel app would be the Cleveland Browns at Baltimore Ravens. The over-under is 38.5. I know we talked about Lamar not doing a lot last time, but he had 4 touchdowns. And Deshaun looked good last week. I don't know what I expect from the game, but I guess I have a hard time seeing it being under 2017. Like, I respect both defenses, but just at this point, from what I've seen with the quarterbacks, I think 38.5 is I like 40 plus, but I don't need to play with the odds. I'll just take 38.5.
I think that's a sneaky game that could end up going higher. Just because of that, I think the over-under has kind of been held down because both of those defenses are really good, but not given enough credit to how good both of those offenses could be, especially if Deshaun Watson, he looks like, for better or for worse, he's back, and his shoulder is healed up enough where he can actually play as opposed to before where he couldn't. And then Lamar is Lamar. He can go off for 4 touchdowns any given week against anybody.
I mean, I think some of what I look at with Deshaun too, not just the shoulder stuff, but the mental side of it.
He may never come all the way back from that.
No, I don't.
That's a whole different podcast.
He had a quote not too long ago. I don't want to get it wrong, but it was like he said it was like the biggest mistake of his life or something. And it was like a football play. Or he was like describing like a play recently, and I saw like a comment. It was like, really, that's it?
I'll tell you what, if I was a member of the Cleveland front office, I would never allow him to have a microphone in front of him for the rest of his tenure for his career. I mean, the guy literally, every time you put him in front of a microphone, it's like there's a rule where it says the best way to get out of a hole, the first thing you do is stop digging. Like he never got that memo. He just can't help himself. Every time he opens his mouth, he puts himself in deeper.
He loves it there. No, he loves it there, it seems like. No, I also
enjoy, Jamie. Enjoy the next 7 years.
But one thing with the mental aspect, though, I wanted to just for anyone like sports psyche wise, like that, he had a lot of positive momentum last week, and he hasn't really had many flashes at all since going to Cleveland.
Yeah,
and that could be the right kind of week to get things going, to find that stride again, to not to Houston form, but more to what a similar level. I don't want to say all the way up,
viable as a player for
someone that I would actually want to start every week.
Right.
Yeah. not a guy that I'm buying for scraps in Dynasty because people are so far down on him, right? And with that in mind, I also like the other over/under that's jumping out at me from the early slate is Houston, Cincinnati, 45.5. I know the weapons are out for Houston, but I mean, we've seen so many teams still score points. It does. I don't want to touch the spread there because if anything, I'd lead in favor of the Bengals there. But I mean, like 30 something to 20 something.
23-20.
You think so?
It's got a sneaky. I mean, because the thing is, like, ask Gladys, Kyle, and B League when we did our higher, lower, and our pick'ems for the Monday night games. I think for the entire season, I picked lower 12 out of the 16 weeks or something like that. And some of these games are sneaky. Like, you never know how it's going to work out. But with Tee Higgins being out or something like that, I could see it being a sneaky, like it in a 24-20, 23-20. I don't know. I don't love it. I don't like it.
The more you said that, the more I just wanted to hit the Bengals spread at -5.5.
I mean, that I get. That I mean,
yeah,
that I could see.
Yeah, that one because I really like because I guess more than anything when I'm looking at the bets on that game, what's coming to mind specifically is Jamar Chase, big week.
Yeah,
like,
it could definitely. I mean, listen, there's lots of ways that it could work out. What do you think, Jamie? You got a strong feeling there? I don't have a strong feeling, but I could see it being a sneaky.
But this is why I like having these conversations because then you can talk me off the ledge on it.
Yeah, I mean, those games that you mentioned, the New Orleans games and then the Houston game, those were the two games when someone asked me who I thought was going to win, those can go either way. So, yeah, I didn't bet those, but I do think it's going to go under just because both defenses are pretty decent. So I would take the under on that one.
The under on which one?
The Houston, Cincy.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Also, the New Orleans ones. I did hear a stat where the ref that's reffing that game, 70% of the time he refs, it goes on the under when there's a like a 500 team playing. And I believe there was another ref too. Was it the Bucks? No, the Denver game. The Denver game also they predicted to go under because the ref, that's the head ref. 70% of the time always goes on the under.
We got Kyle in the chat here, still watching. So Kyle, you're the real hero today. Kyle Keach creeping up on game time. So he's like, if you're, it's crapper get off the pot here time.
We're hanging out. We're hanging out. It's soccer time. What are you talking about? We got Man City and Chelsea going right now.
I don't understand any of that. I don't know what that means.
Well, you're not in those Dynasty Premier League leagues? No. So what I'm actually probably going to do, or not what I'm probably going to do, what I'm going to do is that same game, Houston Cincy.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with the under, but I'm going to do an alternate total points.
Ooh.
So I'm not getting as good of odds, but instead of essentially just straight up 1-for-1, it's going to be -184. But I plan to parlay this with other things. And what it is under 49.5. So instead of 45, I need under 50.
All right, I like it.
And that way, I feel like I have even more room for error or for points.
50% of the time, it works every time.
Damn right. If only I was still in my Anchorman costume.
That's right.
But no, with that in mind, thank you everyone for tuning in this week. Thank you, Doc, as always, for joining us. Jamie, please tell everyone where they can find you.
Yeah, on X Machine at Jamie Perogue, and then obviously right here every Sunday morning with Zach, and Tuesday nights on the Going for2 cheat sheet.
And Doc, please tell everyone where they can find you.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter X at TFSDoc. You won't find me there that much because I'm trying to bring more positivity into my life. Where you can find me is on the Going for2 Discord. You might have to do a search for it, but Doc's Injury Forum. I just posted something this past week, kind of look back on some of the injuries that players have been dealing with for the whole year, and more of a look forward as we kind of get towards the playoffs. Like, what could we expect from some of these guys as, you know, the really important games start happening, you know, coming up down the stretch. Some you know, leagues go into division games again, and then we get into the fantasy playoffs where you know, the real money is made. And of course, if you like you know, my style of injury analysis and you want to learn how to get better at injury analysis yourself, I do have a book out. It's called Injuries Suck, but Your Fantasy Team Doesn't Have to. Zach talked about it at the top of the show. It's available on print version, e-version, and audio version. The print and e-version on Amazon.com and the audio version on Audible.com. I love audiobooks. It's like listening to a podcast, but you can ingest. I think I've listened to 50 or 60 audiobooks this year, which I never would have the time to do otherwise. You know, listen while you're in the car, listen while you're doing the dishes, listen when you're in the bathroom. I don't judge, but it's a great way to kind of get lots of material in there. A lot of great choices, not just my book. There's over 100,000 titles available on Audible, so it's a great site. Highly recommend it. And thank you to you guys for bringing me back here. It's always such a good time. Thank you for all the questions in the audience. And Gladys, good luck this week. We're facing each other in the Dynasty League, so I hope you win every other league except for that one.
Well, not the fishbowl. I'm facing her in the fishbowl.
Speaking of this fishbowl, real quick, I'm 7-11.
Nice.
I was
all right, getting there.
I was 2-10. We're on our way up.
Make it a little late season push.
We're 20 points away from the cutoff, and I thought we were having a repeat of last year. So, by the way, bottom 150 in the league last year.
Yep, that's where I'm at now, man.
Ever turn the league around, you'd be in the front row.
Yep, I can only win in Dynasty, I guess. But no, go check out his book. Go check out the Audible forum. I need to check out that especially because, I mean, it's like Mad Dog is there with you, except he's a doctor and he knows more about health. And there's less anger, less yelling, but you get that New York accent in a way where it's comforting. You feel at home. And no, thank you. We love having you. Love the book. Love all of it this week. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Glad to be here. Glad to go through all the player news, start sits. You can find me on Twitter at BehindTheZach. You can find me on Tuesday evenings. I am the co-host on Fantasy in Frames for our Waiver Wire show where I do that with Gator J. And then right after that, I host the NBA Run Pass on Run Boys Network. And I will probably be tuning in there later today. Jamie will probably be over there as well because all we do on Sundays is watch football, and
that show is always a good time. So if you're looking for something to watch and listen to after this, definitely check that out on the Run Boys Network. That's always fun.
Absolutely. But with that in mind, thank you for tuning in. Good luck in your fantasy matchups this week. Enjoy watching football, and we'll see you soon. Take care.